Hello everybody, I'm Amr Sherif and today I'm going to explain different types of mixture, solution, suspension and colloid with experiments. So let's start. Solution. Firstly, let me explain what is a solution. Well, a solution is a homogeneous mixture of two or more substances. So all homogeneous mixtures are solutions. For example, if you dissolve salt in water, you get a solution. Water has completely dissolved the particles of salt. Here, let me ask you, can you spot the particles of salt and water in this mixture? Well, you cannot, because both water and salt particles are mixed in such a way that they form a uniform composition. Some other examples of solutions are air, alcohol plus water, and vinegar. In air, different gases mixes together to form a homogeneous mixture. Alcohol and water mixes together to form a uniform composition. In vinegar, acetic acid dissolves in water to form a uniform composition that is homogeneous. Just remember that a mixture is a solution if its particles forms a homogeneous composition. In a solution, the particles are so small that we cannot spot them with naked eye. So, what is a suspension? A suspension is a heterogeneous mixture of undissolved particles in a given medium. So all heterogeneous mixtures are suspensions. For example, when we add water and sand, we get a suspension. Sand and water forms a non-uniform composition that is heterogeneous. Because if we left sand plus water for some time, sand will settle down in the bottom and a clear layer of water appears on top. We can spot larger particles of sand and water with naked eye. So it is a heterogeneous mixture. Some other examples of suspensions are oil plus water, coffee, and dust particles in the air. In oil plus water, we can spot the layer of oil and a layer of water. And in coffee, we can see small particles of coffee and a column of liquid, while we can also spot the dust particles in the air. Just remember that a suspension is a heterogeneous mixture and which particles are large enough and can be seen with naked eye. If a suspension is left for some time, large and undissolved particles settle down at the bottom due to gravity. Now, what is a colloid? A colloid is an intermediate state between solution and suspension. For example, consider some milk. We know that a milk contains low globes of butter fat suspended throughout the liquid. So milk is a colloid because the particles of milk are intermediate in size between those of solution and suspension. Some other examples of colloids are butter, jelly, ink. Finally, let me teach you the difference between solution, colloid, and suspension. A solution is a homogeneous mixture. A colloid is a heterogeneous mixture, and a suspension is also a heterogeneous mixture. In a solution, the size of particles is from 0.01 up to 1 nanometer. In a colloid, the size of particles is from 1 up to 1000 nanometer. In a suspension, the size of particles is larger than 1000 nanometer. The particles in a solution don't separate on standing. Also, the particles of colloid don't separate, but the particles of suspension separate on standing. The particles of a solution cannot be separated by filtration. Also, the particles of colloid cannot be separated by filtration, but the particles of suspension can be separated by filtration. So, what is the easiest way to differentiate between the three, solution, colloid, and suspension? It is by the Tyndall Effect. The Tyndall Effect, also called Tyndall phenomena, scattering of beam of light by a medium containing small suspended particles, smoke or dust in a room, which makes visible light beam entering a window. So let's start the experiment to differentiate between solution, colloid, and suspension. The first thing we need is a safe room and enough space to make the experiment. We also need a white lab coat, safety goggles, a helmet, safety gloves, And don't forget the fire extinguisher. What we need for this experiment is 3 empty glasses. Fill 2 of them with water and the third one with milk, some salt and some flour. Start by adding some salt and mix, and some flour in the other and mix. If we left them for some time and took a closer look, we will see that salt dissolved in water and most of the flour are at the bottom. Now we will start the Tyndall effect. We need a light bulb, so I used my phone's torch. As we see here, there is a very clear beam of light. While in milk, the light is scattered because of the large particles, and in the flour suspension, the light is scattered. So we can conclude from the Tyndall effect that the particles of solution do not scatter light. The particles of colloid scatter light, and the particles of a suspension may or may not scatter light. Thank you everybody. See you soon.